if you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. We'd love to have you to participate in today's show, and you can do so by doing this. Dialing up the number of 516-453-9921. And if you would like to participate, just simply press the number 1 button and be sure to give the call screener your name so that we can properly introduce you. If you would like to Gmail me, you can at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And there might be a chance that I get that in today. We will see. Chat room is available. You can also get into the chat room, and occasionally I'll have an opportunity to read your chats. Okay, let me start by saying good morning, Mr. Fuller. Good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Okay, let's start off today's show with a Gmail. This comes from Barbara. She said that she enjoyed last week's show and mentioned that you were certainly on code, but she said that she feared that some of the listeners were missing the point on a few things. Anyway, she said she was wondering, what do you think of the district, D.C., becoming the 51st state? And why was the attempt not made when D.C. was the so-called, quote, chocolate city?
Oh, I don't know. And so I think that if it becomes a state, whatever that's supposed to mean, we will only know when it becomes a quote-unquote state. Now, according to the code, what I have in the code book, the word state means person. A person is a state of being, B-E-I-N-G. That's a state. Each person is a state. And they say there's such a thing as United States. Well, united when? What does united mean? It's in the on the cover of my textbook. The word united is there. United Independent. United-Independent with another word called United Independent. So there is such a thing, I've been told, as the United States. And so when D.C. becomes what they call a state, that it will presumably be united, but united for what purpose? For whom? Because according to counter-racist evidence, the only people on the planet who are united in a functional way in what you call politics are the people who believe in white supremacy. Now, you might say that all people are united. They're united in something, meaning they interact with each other in such a way as to get along enough to get some things done, which is the whole point for unity or being united. And that is to get something done. One person interacts with another in order to get something done. whether it's just lifting a log or building a bridge or producing food. One person does a little bit of one thing and another person doing another. You can say those two people are united, but they are only united at the time that they are united, meaning the time that they are doing whatever they are doing. Because worldwide, there is no unity among people at all, even among the white supremacists. They fight each other on a huge scale. So while they're fighting each other, they are united in purpose in fighting each other and suppressing other people. It's just a matter of one being in unity with the other in the ultimate goal, but in the interim goal, meaning in between, in the short term, they might fight each other in the process of trying to get the best of someone else or keep someone else under their domination. So, in direct answer to the question, I don't know what the state, becoming a state, will mean, except does that mean we'll be united in the production of justice, finally, guaranteeing that no one is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person that needs that the most gets the most constructive help. So the people who are using the term will, I guess, explain what the ultimate product would be of D.C., the District of Columbia, they call it, would be that's different from what it is now. And would it produce a constructive result? We'd only know that using the words and shifting from District of Columbia to now we have a state. I don't know what it would be called. But what would that state be called, and what would be the purpose of the state that was different from what it was when it was the District of Columbia? Because it's all going to be under the system of white supremacy, so it remains to be seen what that would mean that would be different.
Alrighty, there you go. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to the area code of 223, and that looks like it's going to be Darnell from Pennsylvania. Darnell, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Good morning,
Darnell?
Mr. Bobby. Good morning,
Yeah,
Mr.
there you
Fuller.
go.
Yes, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Good morning. My question for Mr. Fuller is, I was just curious as to why is it important for the victim of white supremacy, the non-white person, to always be focused on staying on code and always being dedicated to a code and not to a person. Thank you.
Because people make mistakes. All people make mistakes, huge mistakes. I mean, people make mistakes all day long. Each individual person makes mistakes. You become infatuated or attracted to a person. The assumption is that person doesn't make mistakes. That's a huge error. That's a huge mistake right there. Anytime you become so enthralled by a person's style of doing things or the manner in which they go about doing things or the things that they say and do that somehow enchants you as a person, people have a tendency to look to, what they call a leader in all things, an all-knowing person, a person that knows everything, got the answer to everything. According to compensatory logic, there's no person like that walking the face of the earth here in 2021. No person. No person qualified, knowing everything, always makes the correct decision on everything. Always. Never makes an error. Ever. Well, anybody would be attracted to such a person if there was such a person. But we try to sometimes think that there is such a person somewhere. Why? And that's natural to think that way because it's so convenient. It's so easy. If you got somebody else to do all of the thinking and you don't have to do any, you can go back to being a baby again. Babies don't really try to do any thinking. They don't even know what a thought is. They just, cry out when they want something. We come into the world crying. And we have a tendency to want to keep doing that. Just keep crying. Never stop until we get what we want. We want this. We want that. We want that big elephant over there. That's a baby. I don't want the elephant anymore. And start crying again. Give me that train over there. And so I got the train now, and so I bang it all up, a little toy train. So I take a hammer and I beat it all up and crush it. So then I cry about what I did. Then I look up and say, now what else is next? Give me that tin can over there. I want to roll it across the kitchen floor. And then you get bored with that and then you cry out again. Now we start out that way. And we have a tendency to want to remain that way. And in the system of white supremacy, the white supremacists definitely want black people to be that way forever. Because that way that they'll do all the thinking. So in answer to the question, no, we need a code. A code is reliable because everything that works successfully in the known universe has a code. The sun moves in a certain way according to a code. People who study the weather patterns and all of that, that's according to a code. I mean, the rain will fall according to a code. The combination of things come together. They unite, to use that word unite again. The combination of things have to come together in order for it to rain. Otherwise, you're not going to get any rain. And then the clouds move here and the clouds move there in combination with what the sun is doing. And you have a thing called wind. And then the clouds will dump rain, sometimes too much, to satisfy some people. And you get what you call a flood. All right, so you have to make a compensation for that by moving out of the way of the flood before it gets there. Otherwise, you do what they call drown. That's according to a code. So people learn the code by trial and error, any code. And in the field, in answer to the question of fighting racism and replacing it with justice, the theory is you have to have a code for that too. Something that you can rely on. Because trying to rely on a person, and we have all seen it happen down through history, we get all wrapped up in a leader. Oh, this is my leader. I'm going to my leader. And this is fine up to a point. But you also have, the leader has to have a code to follow. Otherwise, what is the leader following? So you can follow the same thing that the leader is following. Because if a leader is honest, any leader is trying to get his followers to follow a code. Because if the leader is honest and intelligent, the leader knows that the leader is not going to be here. So there's got to be something left that the leader left, other than his or her old clothes. That sometimes people worship the old clothes. That's not code. Because anybody could have had those clothes. So you take the clothes and put them in a museum, and everybody lines up and worships the clothes of what used to be my leader 10,000 years ago. That's a form of insanity. The shoes that were left behind. Everybody lines up in a line and goes past the shoes. The shoes were made in a factory. Not even by the leader, him or herself. So what's that all about? See, everything is about logic and a code. That's why we need a code. Logic. Cause and effect. Things that get results. Things you can rely on. You can't rely on people. People will let you down at some point.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Darnell. And again, don't be a stranger. 516-453-9921 is the number that you can call to get into the show. I have a question here from, I believe it's KJ. It says, Mr. Fuller, how does one deal with the immense and valid anger one may have against those who are white supremacists? Lately, I have not been able to even look at white people without getting fiery angry when reflecting on all the different infractions they've inflicted on non-whites. It's causing much depression.
How you do it is by having a code that says you don't do it. You don't get angry with anybody. Anger is an emotion that passes. It comes and goes. And usually when a person is angry, the record kind of shows that you make huge mistakes. See, concentrate not on the person that you're angry with, concentrate on the anger. Anger means you're losing control. That's a sign you're losing control. Control of what? Control of your situation. So, I sometimes give illustrations in movies. And there's a movie that I sometimes point out because it's a prison movie, and all black people on the planet Earth in 2021 are prisoners of war. All of them, without exception, including myself, 24/7 in all areas of activity. So I point out the movie Shawshank Redemption, where a character in the movie is named Andy Dufresne. And he went to talk to the warden. And the warden said that, well, what are you in here for? He said, well, I think I got some evidence that I didn't commit those murders that I'm in here for and have done all this hard time for. And there's a person that can probably produce that evidence if you'll listen to me about what this person told me about the person that did commit the murders, because the murders were committed. That's why I'm here in this prison. But I didn't do it. So the warden listened, and the warden said, well, some guy told you that he knows something about who committed the murders. Well, that was so long ago. You've been in here about a decade or so. So, and suppose, they track down this guy and all like that. The evidence and all like that is probably not going to come to nothing. So you might as well just give up on that project, even if you didn't do it. It doesn't matter now. Too much time has passed. Everything is all washed away. And so the person talking to the warden, he's still a prisoner now. So just like the caller said, he looks at white people and he gets angry. So he said, how can you be so obtuse? Now, I looked up the word obtuse. It means being stubborn or something like that. That just latching on to an idea and holding on to it, even and not giving it any consideration outside of that, and don't want to listen to anybody outside of that. So that's what he was telling the warden. You're being stubborn. You're being obtuse. and he was losing his temper. He was getting angry when he was talking to the warden, because apparently that's what the warden was doing, because the warden didn't even want to hear that. And so he called the warden a name. Now, that's what anger does. Anger makes you do something that's not going to be productive. That's why we need a code. See, the frame at that moment didn't have a code to cover that, but he made one immediately after that. Why? Because the warden said, I'm tired of listening to you. And so you're going to the hole. A month in the hole. All right? And so that put him in solitary confinement. Now, what does that mean? That illustration means? It means when you get angry, you're subject to lose. You lose all sight on what you're trying to do, because you're thinking about having a popularity contest or something going on here with the white supremacists. The white supremacists are nothing but, the white person that you're looking at, they're just going along with the way that they have been trained. Like they say that the person that had his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck, that word in the defense comes up. That officer was just doing what he's trained to do. And there's plenty of evidence to show that, and there's going to be some. Because, he's looking right at the camera and saying, well, whoa, whatever. Why is everybody looking at me? I'm doing what I'm trained to do. I got my knee on this guy's neck. And they trained me very carefully to put my knee on somebody's neck in some instances where they're being belligerent or non-cooperative, or I perceive that they are. So what's the big deal? I mean, why is everybody looking at me? Well, they want to throw rocks at me, and I'm doing what I'm trained to do? I mean, I'm just doing what I'm trained to do. Aren't you trained to do whatever you do on your job? Well, I'm trained to do what I'm doing on my job, and I'm doing my job. And so if you got the cameras on me, give me an Academy Award. I mean, because I'm doing what I'm trained to do, or some kind of award. This is evidence that I'm doing what I'm trained to do. I'm sticking with that. Why? Because I'm trained to do what I'm doing. Now, it's the same way. Black people have been trained to get angry and blow up in the warden's face. And then the warden says, oh, you're going to blow up with me about something that you allegedly did. So I'm going to punish you for that, because I didn't do nothing to you. I'm Warden Norton here at Shawshank Prison. In the end of the frame, you are a prisoner, and you forgot that. You forget who you're talking to. So, what's the point that I'm making in answer to the question? Don't get angry with white people. Get smart and get codified. And then we will be on the correct page with white people here on this planet, which is a page that we're supposed to be writing on. The white supremacists are writing their story. We're supposed to get codified and write ours. That's all. It's not personal. It's business.
Business. Okay. All righty. 516-453-9921 is the number that you would call to get in contact with the show. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, and the at gmail.com. And the chat room is now open. This is the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller. And we will go to the phone lines, and let's see who we have here. Looks like we have Gregory in the 561 from Florida. Let's see if we can get you in here, Gregory. Okay, there you go. Gregory, good morning.
Hey, how you guys doing this day?
Good morning, sir.
I have a VGQ and a question for Mr. Fuller. I was thinking toward this situation with George Floyd, it would seem as though we would implement a code to where we would get justice from this, like no matter what, by any means necessary. We wouldn't just allow this to be like any other case, because I think it's very symbolic of things. And my question for Mr. Fuller is, why is it that we constantly can see like a city, I'm from Detroit originally, and like Chicago and places like that, where you have 300 murders, 600 murders of our own, and we don't have enough sense to go after people who cause us, great harm, like the white supremacists?
I tend to believe, now I could be incorrect if I make mistakes, that this will continue, because I have anguished over this. Every time I think about it, it's so obvious that black people need to stop this running around showing off, which is mostly what it is, killing each other about nothing, knowing full well that nobody's going to gain from that, including ourselves when we do it, because we got the answer to the white supremacists. And so it's just a bunch of prisoners, a bunch of slaves on the slave ship. You're on the slave ship. You don't know how to get off the ship. So you turn on each other, fighting over cornbread or fighting over whatever. The white supremacists throw down the hatch of the slave ship. A few crumbs here and now, every now and then. And I can understand people being hungry, so they fight each other. But black people also fight each other over absolutely nothing, simply because we can't stand ourselves being prisoners of war. We got taken.
Something else
and so
I
we
want to
get mad at the other prisoner of war because we say, well, I'm dumb, and I'm sitting next to a person who is dumb as I am, so I'm going to turn on that person because I ain't smart enough to know what to do about the captain of this slave ship that I'm on. And that's all that there is. Weak people always turn on each other because they can't stand weakness. And the first thing you don't want to admit to the world, nobody does, is your weaknesses. So when you look and see somebody who is just as weak as you are, it makes you, like the caller that just called in said, it makes you angry. And the more you look at that person, the more that person reminds you of yourself. So you lash out. Even though you are chained down, you lash out with your chains against the person sitting next to you because you say, you're weak. And you remind me of my weaknesses. Because I want to have an image of being strong around everybody, including you. But I can't have an image of being strong when you can see that I'm just as weak as you are. And nobody likes to admit to being weak. Babies don't. Babies fight against the image of being weak. That's why they push your hand away when they learn how to do something, because they want to do it for themselves. They want to show strength. Babies, the females who are listening to this program, you know that. You see that in the baby behavior. They push your hand away when they see that they can pull themselves up in the crib. But they'll cry as long as they can, and they get angry. Because the next thing to crying is anger. So that's why black people lash out at each other, and that will continue as long as you have what? The system of white supremacy, unfortunately. And so what is the codified remedy for it? Black people have to keep distance from each other because we are extremely poisonous people. Here right in the middle of the coronavirus, when we say, well, I'm tired of being locked down. I'm tired of staying in. I'm getting out and have some fun. Well, what is showing up when we get out to, quote, fun, when black people get ready to have fun, look out. It means somebody's going to get killed in the system of white supremacy. That's what fun to black people means.
All righty. Thank you, Gregory from Florida. Okay. We're coming up on this break, so let's do this. You are listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, to get in contact with the show, simply call 516-453-9921, and be sure to give your name to the call screener and depress the number 1 button if you would like to ask a question or have a comment, which Mr. Fuller calls VGQ. And I would ask, please ma'am, please sir, to make it brief so that we may get as many calls in as possible or as many Gmails read as possible. So could you do that, please, ma'am? Could you do that, please, sir? We will appreciate that. The chat room is open, and we thank you for being in there. And remember that all your chats can be seen by all those who participated. And thank you to Moon Pie and thank you to Robert for making everything go real good or real smooth for us. Again, the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Okay. Let's go back to the Gmails, and we have Alpha the First. Says this, Mr. Fuller. Recently, Mr. Fuller, a Mr. Robert Aaron Long, 21-year-old white man, suspected white supremacist, confessed to shooting 8 people at 2 Asian American massage parlors in Atlanta, Georgia. The Crabapple First Baptist Church in Milton, Georgia, stated they have, quote, disowned, end of quote, Mr. Long because, quote, we can no longer affirm that he is truly a regenerate believer in Jesus Christ, end of quote. Many black people are upset over this, but not because of this incident, but because black people are being blamed for, quote, anti-Asian racism. My question is, Mr. Fuller, on page 329, second to the last paragraph of the original code, the code says, as long as white supremacy exists, all races are white people. Can non-white people, i.e. Asian and black people, be racist? I ask this because many black people are confused now over who are the races.
Well, no, non-white people cannot be racist in the system of white supremacy. Some of them may want to be, but depends on what you mean by racist. All it means, racism is just a form of animosity and taking advantage of people who are weak. I mean, fundamentally, that's all it is. And it's based on color. That's what makes it racism. So, non-white people, like black people, the illustrations I just gave just a few minutes ago about the slave ship and black people killing each other in all these neighborhoods, every chance that we get, we want to kill somebody that looks exactly like us. I mean, the more they look like us, the faster we want to get to them and kill them. Okay? So people who have color in their skin, they're the next. I mean, and so if the word goes out that there are some people who are weak, in a weak position, and that reminds us of our weakness, and there are some people down the street there that's running a little shop of some type. I mean, and they're called Chinese or Japanese or Indonesians or Indians. Oh, and white people said that, hey, they sent out a little signal that they are weak, they're in a weak position, that they ain't going to protect them. Oh, somebody's not going to be protected. And I'm black, that's who I go after, because I'm not protected. And so anybody else who ain't protected, I'm going to show some strength, some kind of strength, because I'm a man. So I'm going to run down there as fast as I can before they move that little shop that they got, and I'm going to do a job on them. I'm going to find something to do. I'm going to push that old Chinese lady down and kick her and run down the street and laugh. because there's open season on Asians now. Some people call Asians. Some people who are in a weak position. Because, I'm a black male and I want to show my strength. So I definitely ain't going to show my strength against those white supremacists, because even with my granddaddy, that didn't pay off. I know better than that. So I'm going to look around, first of all, for the first black person I see that I can kick and get away with it. And if they show me some other people who are supposed to be on the white supremacist list as expendable, I'm going to jump on them too, because I'm going to show my manhood some kind of way. I mean, hey, I ain't going to be ignored no more. I'm a man. I'm supposed to be managing things. That's what man means. I ain't managing nothing. I can't manage to get, a little food on the table. I'm out here begging on the street. So I'm going over there and kick that Chinaman. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kick him, knock him down, stomp on his head. And then what am I going to do next? I'm going to run. That's what I'm going to do. Run from whom? Run from the Chinaman? He's weak. He ain't got nothing going for him. He ain't got no protection. That's why I kicked him and stomped on him. No, run from the white supremacists, because they just might disapprove of what I did. And the white supremacists are Big Daddy for me and all of my ancestors. And everybody's going to come after me, it looked like. So I better run, because I might dissatisfy them.
Mm-hmm.
See, we got to know ourselves and what we're doing and why we're doing it. There's an old saying, I didn't invent it, know thyself. Black people don't want to. Boy, one thing we definitely don't want to do, even though we do it all the time, stand in front of that mirror like Snow White.
Okay.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And you know what the mirror said back to the black person? Snow White, you black SOB, and don't you ever forget it.
Okay. Okay, remember, when you call in and you want to speak, depress the number 1 button and be sure to give your name to the call screener so that I may properly introduce you. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Let's go to the great state of New York, and we're going to talk to the dollar bill, and the 646. Let me see if I can get you in here. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, dollar bill, there you go. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead.
Okay. So, as you know, I'm a teacher. And you know what? I mean, there's a lot of questions that go through my mind all the time. In the book, the original version, I'll go to this, and you talk about education. And on page 69, in the original version, you said, teach smaller young people the truth about everything that you know about economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Teach them in such a manner that they fully understand what you are saying. And tell them that the correct purpose for learning about anything at any time is to use what is learned to help produce justice and correctness. Tell them specific ways that they can best use what they learn. So my question is, since I teach children from around the world, and I'm also teaching my own children, what specific ways, and I want to say this in a manner of what you just said, because you were talking about the way mentally we are as a people, as black people. And I would like to know, what specific ways do you suggest if they do not ask any specific questions? How should we be teaching them? Thank you.
I don't think I understand that question.
Okay.
Could you
What
rephrase
you said,
it?
tell them. Sure, I can.
Specifically, could you make it concise?
Got you. So what is the best codified way to teach our children when we know that they are mentally handicapped? And I mean, since you're saying that we're in this mental frame of mind that we hate ourselves and those things, so what specific ways should we teach the mentally disabled, and I don't mean those people that, like us, who have that what did you call it, it's not a virus, a poison, that's your word. How do we teach them?
You teach people by talking to them. You tell them the truth. That's all. And the part of the code says the truth doesn't need to be preached. It doesn't even need to be taught. It just needs to be told. People can put things together if you just tell them the truth about everything. Truth means you reveal what is, but you reveal it in such a way that people understand what you're talking about. That's where the problem comes. Your means of getting a person to understand, and you have to use the words that will do it. So you never tell anybody anything in a way that the person is going to be more confused than they were before you told them. So that's where the danger is. You have to be very careful about the way you go about saying things. So you have to choose your words carefully and try to keep it simple. Because complication brings about what? Confusion. The white supremacists make simple things complicated when it comes to black people. All right? So the image of the Negro scratching his bald head, I mean, his eyes bugged, is legendary all over the world. Person with black skin, eyes bugged, scratching his head, trying to make his brain work. Big question mark over his head. That cartoon is everywhere. It's legendary. So when it comes to young black people, old black people sometimes ask me the question that you basically ask. What do you teach young people? What do you tell young people? You tell young people the same thing you tell old people. It doesn't make any difference. Age has nothing to do with it. 1 and 1 is 2 for everybody. Fire will burn. Water is wet. So when is the best time to tell a person anything? It's when they start asking questions. Now, you can tell them before that, but when a person starts asking questions, and young people ask a lot of questions about everything, because the world is new to them. So they want answers, quick answers, accurate answers. So you just have the answers ready. And most of the time, or many times I'll say, the answer is, I don't know. That's the truthful answer. But it also means you now have a duty to find out, because no question is supposed to go unanswered. That's something I have to do here on this program, the Counter-Racist Code. When people ask me a question and Neely Fuller says, I don't know, that means I better get busy and find out. Why? Because all questions in the universe are supposed to be answered. That's why they exist. That's why questions exist. So in answer to your question, what do you tell these young people? To codify everything that they say and do, just like you're supposed to be in the process of codifying everything that you say and do, so that you get what? Always get answers to questions that always result in what? The most constructive activity, the most constructive result. That's your aim. That's your goal. Answering questions is just not like being in a quiz program. You don't have any particular goal in mind, except maybe to get a prize, but, in a TV show, that's what the goal is. But the prize is in what we call existence on the planet. When you get the answers to questions, a problem is supposed to be solved. Because that's what answers do. That's why questions exist. Questions exist to be asked so that you can get answers to each question. And it's only one answer to every question, and that is the correct answer. Otherwise, it's not an answer if it's not the correct answer. And what is that answer supposed to do? Solve a problem.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Dollar Bill. Don't be a stranger. And speaking about questions and answers, Mr. Fuller, now it is time to speak about your publication.
Yes. Now, the book that some of the people are reading out of, some of them have them, I hope more of them get it, is the textbook for victims of white supremacy. It's called the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. That's the basic title. That's the foundational title. And I call it the Counter-Racist Code for short sometimes. But to be explicit, it's called a textbook workbook for thinking, for speaking, and for acting. Because that's what people do all day long. If they are functioning, they are thinking, and they are speaking if they can speak. Some people have, cannot speak on account of they have that affliction, but they speak in some language, speak with their eyes, speak with their hands, and speak, communicate, and act. And you do this all day. Now, thoughts plus speech plus action is supposed to end in something happening that should happen. And that's what we need a code for, and that's why I wrote the book for. Every move, every thought that you have, everything that you say to somebody, and everything that you do, thought, speech, action, is supposed to result in something constructive. Something happened as a result of what you thought, what you said, and what you did that had a constructive result. You put a gun in your waistband, you go out, and you shoot somebody, and you take their money off of their dead body and run. The question is, questions and answers. Is that a constructive result? Is that something that black people should do to take care of their situation under the circumstances we are under? Many of us do it. The record shows that has not produced a constructive result. That's not the way to go. We need a better way than that. So that's what the textbook is about. Just that simple. Thought, speech, action. What to say under every circumstance. Mm-hmm. What to do under every circumstance in all areas of activity. And you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. Because with what we have been doing, apparently, is not working. What we have been saying hasn't been working. Why? Because racism is still here. So we need a code of thought, speech, and action that will result in racism not being here anymore and justice prevailing and peace prevailing. That's what the textbook is for. That's why I wrote it. You can get it by going to producejustice.com. What to say and what to do. What to not say, what to not do. And all the areas of examples are given in the book. Producejustice.com. Go to the book.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Going to the Gmails, this is from Divatude. It says, Mr. Fuller, my question was, I was part of a social group which was only for black women. Someone posted a series of conversations from white people about how they sabotage black people on the job, essentially a series of conversations explaining the way they practice racism against black people on the job. After this was posted to our group, the owner of the group deletes all the conversations and removes me from the group for responding and removes another black woman for posting it. My question to you, Mr. Fuller, is where does black people's need for protecting white people come from, and why do black people do it when they see white people mistreating black people?
Now, I want to get the first question. The first question is, what?
It says, my question to Mr. Fuller is, where does black people's need for protecting white people come from, and why do black people do it when they see white people mistreating black people?
Danger. We all run away from danger. We back away from danger. You know, you see a sign on the bridge saying, don't cross this bridge. It's dangerous. Why? Because it's weak. If you cross this bridge, I mean, you know, hey, you do it at your own risk. It might even be a sign saying that. Cross at your own risk. Don't blame anybody but yourself if you happen to fall. This bridge is dangerous. Okay? You can go ahead. So people back away from danger. So the short answer is, that's what it is, fear. Fear of what? Fear of something that they consider a little dangerous. Like even Don Corleone in the movie The Godfather, another movie I refer to every now and then. He told Sollozzo what? He said, you know, he said, I'm in the Don Corleone, I'm in the business of gambling. I'm in the business of, you know, little women, you know, prostitution and whatnot. And most people consider that a harmless vice. But you're in the drug business. And your business is a little bit dangerous. So I don't think I want to get in that business. I think it's unhealthy all the way around. And so black people are the same way. People talking about the specific organization. That's all it was, fear. And say, hey, our organization will get crushed if we go down that route. You know? And that's one reason I wrote the book. Because black people, when we get together, by the time we get about 4 or 5 people, we get in an argument about how we're going to go about fighting racism. So I wrote a book where they say you become an army of one. Now that is the difference. That is one thing that's different. And it's an important difference. The United Independent Compensatory System means you become an army of one. And I use another movie to give an illustration of that. And that is the movie Casablanca, my favorite movie. And one that I recommend more than I recommend any movie I've ever seen. There's a character in it named Rick Blaine, played by Humphrey Bogart. And the way he goes about doing things, he's a flawed character like we all are. That's another thing I like about the movie. He's a very flawed character. There's a lot of flaws, all kinds of flaws. But he has principles that he tries to hold on to. And he doesn't trust anybody to help him. Really. All through the movie. He takes the attitude that the world is an evil place. Everybody is doing evil, including me. But I'm trying to lessen the evil that I'm doing and try to break out of it as best I can. I get drunk a lot of times. I do stupid things. I make bad business deals. But I try to do the best that I can each and every day, every minute of every day, dealing with all kinds of people who come and go in my cafe. And out of all, even though I don't have a lot of hope for the world ever being the type of place it ought to be, with me in it, in the middle of it, I'm an army of one. And I'm not depending on anybody else to help me do anything, including people who are supposed to be close to me. I'm looking to them to double-cross me. Captain Renault, who I work with in doing his illicit business, and he's supposed to be a police officer. I do business with him. He's just as crooked as he can be. But he lets me know he's crooked as he can be, and he lets me know that if things get hot, he will harm me. And I understand that. But I do the best I can under these insane circumstances. Because this whole world that I'm in is insane. And this is the position that I say that every black person should take. Because the whole world is insane, and so are you. Because you can't be anything else except insane in an insane world, in this prison system called the system of white supremacy. I hope I didn't lose the point there.
No, you're okay, Mr. Fuller. You're okay. Okay, here we're coming up on about 3 minutes before the hour. If I have to cut you off at the top of the hour, Mr. Fuller, I will, but let me do this. Got a question from the Gmail from Roland. He says, Mr. Fuller, he wanted me to ask you about all of this heightened racial showcasing involving the LGBTQ community, and what is the codified procedure used to spread logic to those who cannot see this phenomenon?
Just tell them to keep looking at it and see what they're looking at. There's a passage in the original code book that says, in racial matters, many look, but few see. See what? See what they're looking at. Codification is about not listening so much to what the people are saying, and you're supposed to listen to what people say, but also watch what people do. And when you watch what they do, keep in mind what is going to be what. And this is all through everything in the code book. 2 words, constructive result. So when people go around with banners and marching and whatnot, and they come and tell black people, hey, all this stuff about civil rights and education and what school you're going to and what Nat Turner did and what Fannie Lou Hamer fought for and what Sojourner Truth did and all this. I mean, that's all well and good. And the African Americans Museum, I mean, you go there and you look at all the history of slavery and whatnot. Oh, yeah, la-da-da-da-da. But what you black people really need, more than anything, you need to do something about your sex lives. And you've been struggling all this time to make this thing work. Black male with black female, trying to get that straight, and you never did. Because I saw to it that you ain't going to let that ain't happening. So I tell you what you need to do is look at other forms of sexuality. That's what you black people need more than anything. More than education, more than money, more than health care. You're lined up trying to get health care and trying to get education and trying to get more money. You're always trying to get more money so you can pay your bills and all like that. But just forget all that for the time being here in 2021. This is a new era, a new year. What you black people have been missing all these thousands of years with your ignorant selves, you need to do something about your sexuality. The 8th area of activity. Sex is very strong. Everybody knows that. You have governors and mayors and you have all kind of politicians and even preachers getting in trouble about what? Sexuality. Sex is strong. It's in the back of everybody's mind all day long. I mean, every pimp knows how strong sex is. And people will do lots of things to satisfy whatever sexual urges they may have. But you black people, more than anybody, you need to get your sex lives straight. Now, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You need variety. That's what's really missing. And I will tell you the kind of variety you ought to have. And so that's where they're leading black people right now, down that primrose path. Sex is the strongest urge among black people and among all people, next to the power of the system of white supremacy. Is right next, that eighth area of activity.
Hold it right there, Mr. Fuller, as we do our station break for the hour. Thank you. All right. Thank you for listening to the first hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. We thank all of you for your calls and your comments. And if you have to go, then hopefully we will do this again next week. So thank you. Now, stay tuned for the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., which will commence in 7 seconds. Alrighty. Good morning again, and welcome to the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, simply dial this number, 516-453-9921, and make sure that you depress the number 1 button, and you will get in rotation so that Mr. Fuller can address your question. I would ask, please, ma'am, please, sir, that when you do, please be concise, or as they said in the transformer, be quick. If you write me, do not write a novel, because I will not be able to read it. You can do that by going to my Gmail account, the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. And the chat room is open. Chances are I will not read that Gmail today. However, it will be read at some point, and I will inform you of that. Speaking about a chat room, please be aware that there's some things that are going on in the chat room that I'm not going to mention publicly, but those who are aware and are on can really see what's going on. Just keep on doing what you're doing. You're doing the constructive thing, because you know what they're trying to do, so don't even worry about that. But those are ways that you can get in contact with the show and have Mr. Fuller address your question or concern. All righty, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sua, we got you. Brother Sloan, we're going to get to you. Sam in Canada. John in Houston, and we just did Roland's question. Okay, Mr. Fuller, before we go to Sue in L.A., you were speaking about sex and black people. You want to finish that up?
Yes. Sex is a huge thing. I mean, many preachers are preaching all about, fornication and all like that, and at the same time they're running through everybody in the choir. Okay? Sex is strong. Okay? And people who are sitting in a church, I'm not picking on any particular religion or anything like that. It doesn't make any difference what religion they have, whether it's Confucianism, Buddhism, whatnot. And sex is a strong urge. So the white supremacists looked at the black people of the planet and say, we really got to control what black people do sexually. So when we begin to loosen up a little bit and let them run around and have white women, black males been lusting after white women like forever, and we'll let them have a crack at that. We'll let them have so many. We'll control it. They'll think they're controlling it, but really they're not, like they think they control anything. But we're really controlling all of that. So we'll, at a certain point, we used to hang them just for thinking about being with a white woman, holding a white woman's hand, other than to pull her out of the river or something, okay, if she's drowning. And then as soon as he pulls out of that river, that Negro better turn loose of that hand. He better not hold it too long, or we're going to throw him in the river. That's the way it was for many, many years, decades, hundreds of years. So, black male, white female, ooh, don't even think about it, except him down on his knees, begging her for a crumb of food or something like that with his hat off, okay? Got to show maximum respect, as they called it. See, white male, black female, no. Now the white supremacists say we're going to be refined. We're going to let her loose. We're going to deliberately let loose a quota of white women with the black male, particularly the smartest of the black males. And we're going to turn them loose. Okay, go get him, Alice. Go get him, Gloria. All right. Okay, Helen, you're next. See that one over there? Go grab him. He's a smart Negro. He's moving up. We're allowing him to move up. So you pair off with him so you can keep an eye on him, okay? And then you report back to me. That's really what that's all about. So-called interracial couples. That's what the white supremacists are doing and have been doing for the last 40 years. That's what they actually started during the 1960s in earnest. They say we got to crank this thing up. So we're going to turn loose a quota of white women on the black male, okay? Then we're going to, over a period of time, and here's where they are now, we're going to tell that black male, now you've had the white women now, and you've been there, done that. We knew that that's the way you would think after you've been there for a little while. So now I'm going to tell you what. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to expand your sexuality in the eras in which you have never explored before. So we're going to rainbowize that, just like we did the civil rights thing. And we're going to tell you that your glory in the future is in the anus of white males. But we're not going to tell you this directly. But we're going to ban the black female's vagina. We're going to fill it up with cement and seal it, because this is where you're likely to go. If you keep moving up and you get to the place you start appreciating black females again, under the system of white supremacy, a black male is not supposed to appreciate a black female under any circumstance, okay? Except his mammy. That's it. That's the only female. As a backup for the damage we do to you, you run and get your mammy. You cry out for your mammy, all right, when you get in trouble. Your grandmammy at that. But the average black female, the one who's supposed to be by your side, we're going to seal up her vagina. And we're going to lead you into the white male anus. That's where we're going to lead you with your thick black skull, because you can't think. And we're going to lead you there. And that's what they are doing right now in answer to the question in 2021. All of this stuff that they are doing with scatterization, the balkanization of sexuality, all different varieties and flavors of sexuality, not just male with female. It's going to be everything with everything, all over the place, particularly for black people and the non-white people of the planet. And they got their foot on the pedal, pushing that gas, that scatterization, that balkanization, that confusion in sexuality to the hilt. But it's all going to lead to the white male turning up his bottom and saying, this is your nirvana, black male. This is where your seed should go. Right up an anus of a white male. That's what you should aspire to and teach your children to aspire to it. And everything is going to be all right in the future. And the black female, not knowing what to do, they will all look at each other and say, we are alone. And so they'll embrace each other with their sealed up vaginas, and they'll lay around with each other and learn to console each other after having been abandoned by the black male worldwide. And then you'll do what? Give them some activities. What activities for the black female? Now that she's persona non grata, now that her sexuality doesn't matter. You know what they're going to do? And you see signs of it. Make them leaders of military. That's what they're going to do. And send them off together to die in each other's arms. One black female all wrapped around another in a foxhole somewhere when the mortars hit and the bombs drop and the bullets fly. And the white supremacists will sit back and watch the fun for the next millennia and the millennia after that and the millennia after that. Because once you confuse the people sexually, you don't have to confuse them in anything else. They're finished. And the white supremacists so far are doing an excellent job of that. And it's our job, like what I'm doing right now, to point this out. That's all I have to do, point it out. We'll wake up and smell the coffee once we take a good look at where all this is going. See, the white supremacists don't come up with something out of nowhere and dump it on black people for no reason. And this came out of nowhere. Just in the last 20 to 25 years, this is where this came from. And I told people it's heading in that direction. So all black females, you know, they got to go out and adopt a dog and all like that. I mean, forget about babies. Population control, too. That's all thrown in there. Black males chasing the white male anus. And black females all wrapped around each other, dying on battlefields. Perfect scenario. Beautiful.
Okay. Let's go to the 213 and make sure I pronounce his name correctly. Sua. I got you up.
It's Wah. Greetings, Bobby. Greetings, Miss Neely Fuller. My question is, in your word guide on page 271, you have this term on automatic ratio. Would it be possible for you to explain this term to the listeners and how important this is into the maintenance and refinement of white supremacy?
Okay, you're pointing out something in the textbook for victims of white supremacy.
The word guide.
And where is it?
From the word guide, page 271.
The word guide. Okay, word guide and page what?
271.
271. All right, I have my word guide here in front of me. Let's see if I can get to this page right quick. Don't waste no time doing it. And where is this? Are you talking about on automatic?
Yes, sir.
Okay, center of the page, page 271 of the word guide. It says on automatic ratio in parentheses. Says use this term. What term? The term on automatic, all right? Use this term to apply to all of the effects that the system of white supremacy has on its victims, non-white people, causing its victims to automatically say and do things again and again and again that do not produce constructive results. So that's what it means. On automatic. It's a term. And I use the term. I think I used it right now, or just a few minutes ago on this program, on automatic. I may have. I've used it on other programs. Use this term to apply to all of the effects that the system of white supremacy has on its victims, that's black people, non-white people, by causing its victims to automatically say and do things again and again and again that do not produce constructive results. So what we call black culture is on automatic. What we glorify is black culture. We glorify black people killing each other. We're on automatic. We do that. We grow up with that in mind, killing each other. We don't think we do grow up with that in mind, but it's there. Otherwise, we wouldn't what? By logic, be doing it. So that's on automatic, generation after generation. You said something about my mama. That's a part of black culture. What did Malcolm X do before he became Malcolm X? In the movie Malcolm X, presented by Mr. Spike Lee, there's a scene in it. Malcolm X was in a bar, and the person said something about his mother. So he just calmly walked away and came back with a beer bottle in his hand and smashed that beer bottle in the guy's face, sending him to the floor bloody, and said, "Don't you ever in your life say anything about my mama." Now, that's black culture. That's on automatic. In the old days, it was really on automatic. You want to, this is a killing situation. You say anything about a black male's mother, and in particular in a setting like a bar, it's made for bars, places where people get drunk, high, and get away with stuff that they wouldn't ordinarily do out on the street. So fighting went along with that. And fighting about somebody saying something about somebody's mother was automatic, on automatic, part of black culture. Now, what does the code say while I'm on that subject? We need to get off automatic, including if somebody says something about your mother. What does the code say today in 2021 if somebody says something about Neely Fuller's mother? Oh, your mother's the B word, your mother's this, your mother's is a whore, your mother's this and that and other. If a person said that to me under any setting, what is my reaction supposed to be according to the code? Just like he didn't say anything at all. Just like the person did not exist, the person who said it. That's the effect it's supposed to have on me. According to what? According to counter-racist science. That's what. That black person said the most derogatory thing that anybody could ever say about anybody, and said it about my mother. Now, does that mean I don't care anything about my mother, who is long dead, worked hard, gave birth to me, had great difficulty doing it according to what she told me, and somebody said something derogatory about her? What does the code say that I do? If anybody says it, white or non-white, do I have to, quote, unquote, defend my mother? The answer is, to that question, no. Why don't I say something about that? I don't have nothing to say, because it doesn't call for me to say anything. That's what I mean by dominating your situation. Codification is about dominating your situation. You don't let your situation get out of hand under any circumstance where you do something because of something somebody else did. You always do what the code says do. That's why we need a code. Now, it's dramatic what Malcolm X did before he became an X in that movie. It's dramatic. It gets a lot of attention. You feel emotionally vindicated. But in the system of white supremacy, you are supposed to be a 100% logical person all of the time about everything. And you always think about cause and effect. And the effect is always supposed to produce a constructive result. And that's what that, in answer to the caller's question, that's what that on automatic means. But you can get the book, and it also has a substantial explanation about that, too. I won't bother to read that because it's kind of lengthy. That's in the Word Guide. On automatic.
All right.
Black people need to get off of automatic and get on logic.
Okay. Thank you for listening, Sue. Thank you for your question. And again, don't be a stranger. Okay, let's go to the 757. That's Brother Sloan on the Upper West Side. Let me see if I can cue you in there, brother. And thank you for your patience. Okay, there you go, Brother Sloan. You're on with Mr. Fuller.
Top of the morning to both you gentlemen. Yes, my Upper West Side. Actually, I'm looking at a statue of Franz Sigel, the military general. It's at what we call Duke Ellington Boulevard. I find that very interesting. I have I do have a question for you, but before that, there is a situation where everybody wants you to do to read, to record the book, and I thought about that for a long time, and I think that because you have the book is done and people can hear, they know your voice, so when they're reading the book, they can hear your voice. More importantly, these sessions that you have every week is much more important to me. Because we can hear your response to things, like when you talked about your seeing Malcolm X last week, and you didn't have anything to say to him, which was like perfectly on code. I think those kind of examples are very good. They bode well for us. Anyway, the question I have is, now, since you're in your ninth decade on the planet, how you keep yourself fit? What kind of exercises you do is really the question I have for you. Is sort of like not a burning question, but I wonder because I wonder.
I try to eat correctly. I was looking at C-SPAN last night. I always try to give the references, which is a part of the code, by the way. Anytime you say anything, try to give the reference to what you're talking about. But on C-SPAN last night, a TV program where they were interviewing a white veteran of what they call the Korean War. I was over there myself, okay? So I took an interest in that. So I listened to him, and he was asked the same question. He was up in age, naturally, about my age, in that age bracket in his 90s. So he was asked about keeping fit, and he said some years ago he started eating vegetables. So in answer to the question, that's what I do, and particularly vegetable soup and lots of beans. Lots of beans. Now, the person on C-SPAN didn't mention beans, I don't think, but beans is the basic. That goes in just about every vegetable soup that I make. I put lots of beans in the vegetable soup, and then broccoli and olives and spinach, and I cook it on the top of the stove, all right, and I might put some potatoes in there, but mostly vegetables and vegetable soup, mostly. And the heart of it, in most of the soups I make, not in all, are beans. Because why beans? Why vegetables? Because people say that they're healthy. That's why. Now, I've always been this way. I have a sweet tooth. I lost most of my teeth at an early age because of that sweet tooth. Oh, Mr. Goodbar candy. Oh, give me one. I mean, give me a Snickers. Oh, got to have Snickers every day. Going to eat Snickers for lunch, dinner. Later on, I mean, it was Twinkies. Hey, maybe I shouldn't mention these brand names and whatnot, give them advertising, or asking anybody to condemn them. But I'm just telling the truth about what I did. And someone told me that, hey, later on in life, you're drinking all that root beer and whatnot. And I was drinking root beer. They say, you're going to get inflammation. I say, what's inflammation? They say, you'll have arthritis real bad. But if you come off of it, and people have told me that recently, and I have some reason to believe, you can try it. It may even be true in answer to the caller's question. If you have arthritis or know somebody who has it, maybe if you come off of those sweets, and particularly soft drinks. Black people drink a lot of what you call soft drinks. They ain't soft drinks. Those are hard drinks. And they are doing things to your body, calling that thing that they call inflammation, whatever that means. I haven't looked it up. But I think you might look it up. I'm mentioning that word because that's what a lot of doctors say. And you have inflammation. And that causes the arthritis or makes it worse. And so if you come off of these soft drinks, someone told me, and someone witnessed that they say it works. I haven't heard anything that works against arthritis. I haven't heard of anything except you keep taking medicine to kill the pain, but the arthritis is still there. But they say if you back up off of anything that causes inflammation, your arthritis will get much better. And they say soft drinks gives you a lot of inflammation. Now, I don't know because I don't have arthritis, but I know people who do. And I know of at least one case where that worked or seemed to work. May not have been, but it seemed to work. And so I'm just passing that on. Okay. Notification is about passing on information that you think might have a constructive effect and a constructive result.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'm just saying, vegetables, and try to minimize the sweets. I still have that sweet tooth. Show me some banana pudding, and hey, you have to hold me back, but I will walk away because I know that it'll make me sick, particularly at my age.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, Brother Sloan from the Upper West Side. Don't be a stranger. Let's do this early here. You are listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, simply call 516-453-9921, and be sure to depress the number 1 button, and you will go in rotation so that we can answer, or Mr. Fuller can answer your call, contingent upon the time. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7 Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And I may not read your Gmail today, but at some time I will, and I will give you the date and time when your Gmail is read. Please, ma'am, please, sir, if you do elect to write me, and if you call, please make it brief so that Mr. Fuller can understand what the question is and answer it appropriately. Okay. And the chat room is open, by the way. Please be aware of what you say in that chat room. It goes on in cyberspace. And speaking about that, Mr. Fuller, construction 1, I mentioned that beans were, I went off my page here, but basically that they were nutritious and very healthy. That's not the word that they use. And Small, I apologize for not getting your name right, but thank you. You do call in every week. Pronounce your name SWA, S-W-A-H, SWA. Okay, I will try to remember that. But guess what, SWA? I'm still learning. All righty. Okay. So anyway, that's good. All right, let's get back. Okay, let's get back to the callers. And guess what? Sammy in Canada. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Sorry, so that was actually a mistake. I'm sure I did say Colorado. I think you just didn't hear me.
You know what? You sure did. Let me see. Sammy from Colorado, the 609 area. Go ahead, you're on.
All right. So, Mr. Bobby, I timed it. I have a 30-second VGQ and less than 30-second question. Can I ask both?
Okay.
Okay, the VGQ, Mr. Fuller, I understand you haven't watched the Matrix trilogy. I highly suggest you watch it because I think you'll end up putting it on your films to watch, because if you literally replace the word Matrix with white supremacy, it's almost like it follows your book. The people think that they're free from this world, but actually the whole time they're being controlled by the machines, and I think it almost cinematically represents what you explain white supremacy to be. So that's my VGQ. My question is, if VGQ means that victims of white supremacy are guaranteed or qualified to say what we should do about racism, does that mean white people, supremacists or not, are not qualified to say what they believe should be done about racism? And I'd like to stay on the air, Mr. Bobby.
Yes, they're not correctly qualified, because white people should be suspected of being racist if they're able to be racist. So VGQ means victim. Victim. Victim of what? Victim of white supremacy. Victims guaranteed qualification. We are prisoners of war. So we give ourselves the guaranteed qualification. We don't ask anybody's permission to do that. I mean, we have to, gain power on our own, and we give ourselves that power, even, whether the white supremacists approve of it or not. But we say that we're qualified as prisoners of war. We're in their prison. So we say that we're qualified to say whatever we choose to say about race, racism, and or counter-racism. Qualified, totally qualified. Each and every victim of racism qualifies him or herself. We don't have to go to school or anything else, or go to, running through some political process. We are the political process. That's what codification is about. We just make that a part of the counter-racist code. Why? We're victims of racism. VGQ. Victims Guaranteed Qualification. That's what it means. I made it up. If anybody asks, they say, well, Neely Fuller made that up. You can put it all on me, which is where you should put it, because that's where it came from. And I thought it up for a compensatory reason. We got to have some type of power. That's how we get it. We qualify ourselves, not waiting on somebody else to make us credentialized. That's what the white supremacists do. Say, you now have my credentials to do this, that, and the other. No, we don't wait on them to give us credentials, credibility. We give ourselves that. Because why? We can. And we should do everything we can to do anything that produces constructive results. And Victims Guaranteed Qualification gives us constructive results. Now, what's the constructive result of Victims Guaranteed Qualification, VGQ? Guaranteeing a black person the duty and the privilege, whatever you want to call it, of saying anything that he or she wants to say about race, racism, and or counter-racism as a victim of racism. You're qualified to do it. You're guaranteed it. You guaranteed yourself. Even if somebody says, you can't do that, and that somebody is a white supremacist. So you can just ask the question, why not? I'm a victim of racism. If a white person says, well, you can't say anything about racism that you want to say, and you say, well, are you a white supremacist? And you're telling me that I can't do that? Now the person is put in position of saying that they are white supremacists and they're going to defend white supremacy. And the white supremacists can do that because they got the power. So you say one more word about that VGQ and you're going to be in trouble with me. So that's not a constructive result. See, that goes back to that hand of the frame thing again about that obtuse. You don't say nothing to the warden that the warden disapproves of, and the warden has told you to your face, I disapprove of what you're saying. You go silent according to the code then, and you don't say nothing else. And if the warden says, now you're going to stick by this VGQ thing, and you can tell the warden the truth. You'll say, not when you're around or when you say I can't say it, but I will probably still have it in my head, and because it's there already. Sir, and always be polite when you're talking to your prison masters, always. Don't think that you can get nasty with them because you can't back it up and you ain't got nobody to back you up. Every black person knows that, particularly black males. But we pretended we don't know it. And it always costs us dearly.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Sam from Colorado. Thank you very much, and don't be a stranger. Mr. Fuller, Constructive One out of the chat room says that you were correct, basically, and that beans offer a lot of fiber. So I wanted to get that in. Thank you, Constructive One. Okay, let's continue on with the phone calls. Let's go to the 646. Looks like it's going to be Raymond with a VGQ from Georgia. Go ahead, Raymond. You're on.
Yeah, morning, Mr. Fuller. Morning, Mr. Bobby.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. My VGQ is being times question being asked again. That the answer Mr. Fuller said last week, the answer is right in our face. Understand? So, again, with another VGQ that I think between constructive and non-constructive, there's a question mark. So, Mr. Fuller, can you explain the things that you do in economics with your time that you say build, repair, construct, these things of constructive value? I think that's the code, and that's my VGQ.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, would you like to respond to Raymond's VGQ?
No.
Okay.
The code says that what I do is say that that's what he said.
Okay.
And everybody should take into consideration what was said, if they understood what was said, and think about it and act on it if it will produce what? A what? Constructive result. CR.
Yeah, that's why I want you to explain the things that you do with your economics, with your time, is to do the cleaning stuff. I don't know exactly how you said it, but I'd like you to explain how you say that part. Do these things of constructive value, cleaning, building, repairing. Could you just say that so I could get clearly on that, please?
Well, if I understand what you're saying, if you're talking about the code book and the first area of activity.
I'm talking the code, yeah.
You're talking about the code book?
Yes, sir. Where you said do these things of constructive building.
But to be more specific, I will say this. One of the first entries, if not the first entry, in the code book, under economics, first area of activity, economics meaning the use of time and energy, basically. It's got 4 things there. I always tell people, anytime you think you're getting lost about codification, those are 4 things you can go to in economics. In the first area of activity, economics, in the textbook for victims of white supremacy that you can get by going to producejustice.com. by the way, and go to the economic section, and it's got 4 things there about the use of time and energy. And you can, I think it's the first entry in under economics, if I recall correctly. That's where I intended to put it. And so if you're doing one of those 4 things, you can never get lost as far as codification is concerned. Be doing at all times one of those 4 things, the use of your time and energy while you're on planet Earth. And that is the heart of the code, those 4 things. And,
all righty. Okay, thank you, Raymond. Okay, thank you, Raymond, from from Georgia. Don't be a stranger there. Let's quickly go to the 404. That would be Stan in Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Stan. You are now on with Mr. Fuller.
Hey, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, it's wonderful to talk to you. I have your book, and I'm going through it. But a couple things I wanted to say was, one was, I was talking with a cousin of mine a few years ago, and we were talking about basketball players who come out of college too early, and their careers kind of die out. And he said something to me that really caught my attention. And he said that all the information is out here for you to succeed. The problem is that it comes with the equal amount of confusion. And that always stuck with me. And I realized that being black in America is confusing because, you go to school and you hear all people are created equal and that sort of thing, but our lives don't reflect that. And so I thought that your life, Mr. Fuller, must have been very confusing to you. And at what point in your life did you begin to see this and write it down? And do you have any intentions on writing an autobiography of some sort at some time?
No, I don't. And one of the main reasons is the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. I believe in people focusing on a code, never on a person, unless your religion requires you to focus on a person. Like if you're a Christian, you focus on the words of Jesus, I have been told. So that's a person. And you look to that person, I have been told, to be the center of everything. And what that person said is more important than what everybody else says put together. I understand that's a religious requirement in Christianity, that what a person who existed on this planet over 2,000 years ago, that's a person that you focus on as a person. And there are many other religions that require you to focus on a person. Now, codification is about, for a person who hasn't made up their mind about whether or not to follow a person, or even if they're following a person, as a supplementary or a compensatory thing to solve problems on a daily basis. You focus on a code because fire will burn. Water is wet. Now, whatever created the universe puts you in that type of environment where you do have to consider that fire will burn and that water is wet. And that water will do certain things that fire won't do. And fire will do certain things that water won't do. They're two different things, even though they have some compatibilities and they interact with each other in a certain way. And if you combine fire with water, you can get some constructive things done. But you have to know what that combination is. That combination is a code. You have to put that together. If you're going to mix fire with water, you do it in a certain way. Or if you're going to use water in any kind of way connected, directly, indirectly, with fire. Like when you boil water. water is not the same as fire. But you will need fire if you're going to boil water. You might have had that experience. And you need something in between the fire and the water. And they call that something that is called sometimes metal. They found out by trial and error that sometimes you have to do that. You have to have something called metal to act as a sort of a go-between. Why is it that way? I don't know, but it's just that way. By trial and error, people found out that it works, mostly constructively if it's under control. So that's all it is. And so you follow the things that work. Everything in codification is about getting away from doing everything that doesn't work to produce what? A constructive result. Now, sometimes it's kind of painful to do so, but that goes with it. Sometimes things, in order to get done, are kind of painful, like getting that tooth pulled that no longer is functional. It's just got to come out. It's making an abscess. It's making things worse by being where it is. It's got to come out and replace with something that does work. Like it's an artificial tooth. It's not function. Doesn't function as well as the original. Just like in sex, nothing doesn't function as well as the original. But it'll function. But it strictly make do. But sometimes you have to replace it. But anytime you replace anything, according to the code, it's supposed to be an improvement over what already is. Don't replace it with something that is going to degrade what is already there. And that's basic codification.
Yes.
If you follow that principle, that's the whole book that I have written. So I don't need to be an example. The logic of the universe is an example, because Neely Fuller is no kind of example of nothing. Don't follow Neely Fuller nowhere. Why? Because he's mistake prone, that's why. You don't follow anything where there's a mistake. Get rid of mistakes, all of them.
Okay. Thank you, Stan from Pennsylvania. Don't be a stranger. Okay, moving right along here. Let's go to the 443, and that's going to be Nicole. Let's see if we can get you in here quickly, Nicole. Nicole, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, Mr. Fuller. Hope all is well. Okay, my kind of question is concerning a movie that Woody Allen produced called Annie's Hall. And then second thing was I got arrested the other day for making a statement. So your commentary today went very well with my life. Excuse me, I'm kind of hoarse. All I said is my landlord's refusing to fix the stove, and every time I turn it on, it's like you can smell or hear gas seeping out, and there's a hole in my line. And I said, well, dang, maybe if the roof set on fire, like the song, set the roof on fire, let the mother sucker burn, we don't need no water. Now I got to go back to court because every time I'm facing an arson charge. It just makes no sense how white supremacists at its finest will try to destroy the whole family unit.
So
and I brought up the thing about Woody Allen because Woody Allen was known for raping or something his daughter or something, but they put Bill Cosby in jail for some grown women that happened many, many years ago.
Yes, I've heard of that.
So that's what I wanted to say. That didn't make no sense to me. How Bill Cosby, a black man, sitting in jail for some grown women that went to a party and probably was happy to take some kind of aphrodisiac in the 70s and enjoy themselves, and now get on the bandwagon later to incarcerate the man. But this man, Woody Allen, is still producing movies around?
Well, all people are seriously flawed in the system of white supremacy. And the white supremacists are more seriously flawed than anybody, even though they are the most powerful people. They know how to handle things very well. But the system of white supremacy itself is not designed to do anything for black people that's not going to end that's not going to produce a constructive result. So whether it's Bill Cosby or Neely Fuller or anybody else, nothing about me is supposed to produce a constructive result in the system of white supremacy. And if I do something constructive in one area of activity, the white supremacists will get busy and see to it that Neely Fuller is non-constructive in another area of activity. Because the white supremacists, if black people start doing everything that produces constructive results, it means they're out of business as white supremacy. They can't practice white supremacy anymore. So the white supremacists, anytime they come around black people, they will do 10 things, or maybe 9 things rather, you say 9 out of 10, or 8 things that are very constructive. And then they'll do 2 things that'll unravel everything, all 8 of those things that you are doing as a black person that is constructive. Those 2 things that are non-constructive are going to sabotage all 8 of the things that you are doing that are constructive. So that's just the way they operate. And they do that because it's what? It's deceptive. See, like I said, they'll come around and they'll offer you 4 things that are very constructive. And then they'll sneak in that 5th thing that'll destroy all of the constructive results of that 4 things that you did that were constructive. That's what they delight in doing. And they do that by confusing you.
All right. Sylvia from Maryland, thank you very much. Do not be a stranger here. Remember, the materials that you need to get, you can go to Mr. Fuller's website. That is to get the books and all other materials. Is at producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com. Produce Justice. Let's go to the 832. I believe it's going to be Mohammed. Mohammed, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
All right, good morning. How y'all doing?
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. I was just, I don't know how long we have left, but, well, just like Mr. Fuller said on his last point, my question real quick, the behaviors that Mr. Fuller has observed over the years that white people do around us, like he said that they'll reveal enough about themselves and get us to tell them everything and show how we feel. So I just wanted to ask Mr. Fuller, what are some of the behaviors that he's observed over the years that he thinks black people need to be aware of, especially the white people we come in contact with every day?
Oh, you need a code. That's why I wrote the book. People ask me this all the time. Well, what do you actually do? I said, that's why I wrote the book. I wrote the book really for myself. I started writing the first 6 pages. It turned out to be about 6 pages on a mountain in Japan on what they call a radar site in the 1950s, about 1956. And 57, and I was hearing about what was going on 10,000 miles away with the Little Rock crisis, and I focused on that, and I said, I need some type of guide about how I interact with white people, because I don't have any kind of guide. And I searched around trying to, I was reading Richard Wright's books and later on James Baldwin's books and J.A. Rogers and books written by white people, Grapes of Wrath and Mutiny on the Bounty, and fiction books, non-fiction books, and trying to figure out what's the best way to act every day. what's the best way to speak every day? Things happen to me every day. I'm around white people and black people every day, and I get frustrated about what to do and what to say. And I wind up doing things that sometimes make sense and sometimes don't. And so I actually say, I got to have an exact way of doing everything. And that clicked with me. I mean, what you might say, I don't know if there was a magic moment or what, but I said, Fuller, you are a bundle of nerves. And, you react this way to this situation and that way to that situation. You need an exact way of acting the correct way in every situation that a person can think of. And the correct way means something that works for you. Something that works for you, and every time you do it, it works for you. And so I started writing the first few things. Now, from now on, when somebody says this to me, I'm not going to do what I did last time. I'm going to do this and this, and little by little. Because I first had it in my mind. I tried to remember, and then I would make mistakes because I'd forget what I was supposed to do. And I said, doggone it, I should have done what my mind told me to do that first time a few days ago. And I went and made that same mistake again today. So I had to start writing stuff down. See, when you write stuff down, it comes kind of clear to you. And so little by little, I came up with a 6-page code. And I started working it. And I started finding out that I didn't have to do all that last-minute thinking. And I found out that everything became easier with a 6-page code. A few things. And then the 6 pages became 9 pages because new things kept coming up, and I kept making mistakes that I didn't want to make again. And little by little, I said, that's the key. Write stuff down, Fuller. And it turned out to be a code book, 1,300 pages. And I distilled it into something like 400 the last time I went to press, over a period of years. And that's what you're looking at now on the producejustice.com. Everything that I had in them 1,300 pages, I tried to cram it into at least 2 volumes, Word Guide, and the basic book. That's how you have it in 2021 now, that you can go to Produce Justice to get.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, Raymond. Mohammed. Don't be a stranger here. Let's see. Raymond in the 646. I don't have enough time. I got a minute and 40 seconds to go, but I did write your number down. I tell you what, if you call next week, we'll make sure that you get to the top of the line so that you can ask your questions, because you only have a minute or so. So we're not going to do you, but just do that, and we'll make sure that you get on that. Mr. Fuller, in the remaining 1 minute we have left, I know you have to go to producejustice.com. What say you in the remaining moment that we have?
Just focus on now, I would say, you being a prisoner of war. Think of yourself as being a PW. And not only think of yourself as being a PW, thought, speech, and action. And that thought comes first. Think of yourself as being a prisoner of war. You're subject to prison masters wherever you go on the planet, and that you need a code of how a prisoner should conduct him or herself in order to evolve from being a prisoner to not being a prisoner.
Okay.
And having a code for doing that. But think of yourself, first of all, as a prisoner. When people ask for black males and somebody asks you, or females ask you, are you a veteran? You say, yes. I'm a veteran of the war between those who believe in white supremacy and those who don't.
Okay, that's all the time we have. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. Thank you, Sylvia from North Carolina, for listening. Raymond, don't forget to call again next week. Thank all of the callers, all of the Gmailers. Thank you all. We'll try to do better because we did make a lot of mistakes today, but we're still learning. Okay, thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. ProduceJustice.com.